Detective Sarah Collins didn't know that the man sending her encrypted case files every morning was the most powerful alpha in North America. She didn't know that every dangerous assignment she'd received over the past 2 years had been carefully chosen to showcase her abilities. And she certainly didn't know that the mysterious director she'd never met was about to turn her resignation letter into the beginning of everything she'd never dared to hope for. The fluorescent lights in the evidence room buzzed overhead as Sarah stared at crime scene photos spread across the metal table. 3 supernatural murders in 2 weeks, all connected by the same brutal claw marks and the scent of rogue wolves that made her stomach turn. Her coffee had gone cold hours ago, but she barely noticed. Sleep was a luxury she couldn't afford when innocent people were dying. Her phone buzzed. Another encrypted message from the director. Check the warehouse on 5th Street. Source indicates pack meeting tonight. Backup will be staged 2 blocks away. Trust your instincts. Sarah rubbed her burning eyes. For 2 years, these messages had guided her through the city's most dangerous supernatural cases. The director never revealed how he knew so much, but his intelligence was always accurate, always perfectly timed. She'd built her reputation as the department's best supernatural crimes detective following his guidance, though she'd never been able to thank him in person. "Still here, Collins." Detective Martinez leaned against the doorframe, his partner's badge catching the harsh light. "It's past midnight. Even workaholics need sleep." "Can't sleep when there's a pack of rogues hunting humans." Sarah gathered the photos with steady hands, though exhaustion made her movements slower than usual. "They killed that college student 2 days ago, tore her apart just for walking through the wrong alley." Martinez stepped into the room, concern creasing his features. "The brass assigned this case to the Supernatural Task Force. It's not your responsibility anymore." "Everything that happens in this city is my responsibility." The words came out sharper than intended. Sarah softened her tone. "I know these rogues' patterns. I've been tracking them for weeks." "And you look like hell doing it." Martinez crossed his arms. "When's the last time you went home, ate a real meal, had a conversation that didn't involve murder scenes?" Sarah couldn't remember. The days blurred together in a haze of case files and crime scenes, broken only by those mysterious messages from the director. Her small apartment felt more like a storage unit for clean clothes than a home. The job was everything. The job was all she had. Her phone buzzed again. "The rogues are moving tonight. 5th Street Warehouse, 2 a.m. This is your chance to end this." "I have to go." Sarah stood, her badge heavy against her chest. "There's going to be a confrontation tonight." "Then let the task force handle it." Martinez caught her arm. "Sarah, you've been running yourself into the ground. One night off won't—" One night off could mean another dead innocent. She pulled free gently but firmly. "I can't live with that." The warehouse district smelled like rust and old rain. Sarah crouched behind a shipping container, watching shadows move through the broken windows of the target building. 5 rogues, maybe 6, all larger than average humans, all carrying the wild scent that marked them as wolves who'd lost themselves to bloodlust. Her radio crackled softly. "Back up in position," came the voice of Sergeant Peters. "We're 2 blocks out, just like the director requested." The director. Even the backup teams took orders from the mysterious man she'd never met. Sometimes Sarah wondered if anyone in the department had actually seen him face to face. Movement caught her eye. The rogues were leaving through the back exit, heading toward the residential area where families slept unaware of the danger approaching. Sarah's blood went cold. If they reached the apartment complex 3 blocks away, the death toll would be catastrophic. She couldn't wait for backup. Sarah moved through the shadows, her heart hammering against her ribs. Every instinct screamed at her to wait for support, but those instincts hadn't failed her yet. The director's messages had taught her to trust what she felt, to move when the moment was right. The first rogue never saw her coming. Her tranquilizer gun, loaded with specialized supernatural sedatives, dropped him before he could howl a warning. The second spun toward her with inhuman speed, but Sarah was already rolling behind a concrete barrier. "Collins, what's your status?" Peter's voice crackled through her earpiece. "Rogues are mobile, heading for residential." She kept her voice low as claws scraped against concrete inches from her hiding spot. "I couldn't wait." "Backup is en route. Hold position." But holding position meant letting the pack reach innocent families. Sarah closed her eyes for half a second, gathering her courage. The director had always told her to trust her instincts. Her instincts said, "Move." She emerged from cover, weapon raised. 3 rogues remained, their eyes reflecting the streetlights like yellow flames. The largest one, scarred and massive, bared teeth that could tear through bone. "Easy," Sarah whispered, though her hands remained steady on her weapon. "Nobody else has to get hurt tonight." The scarred rogue laughed, a sound like grinding glass. "Little human thinks she can stop us, the Alpha King's pet detective all alone in the dark." The Alpha King. Sarah's breath caught. These rogues knew about the director, knew about her connection to someone far more powerful than she'd realized. Who is he? The question escaped before she could stop it. Someone who's been keeping secrets from his precious little human. The rogue's smile turned vicious. Someone who's about to lose everything. They attacked in perfect coordination. Sarah's tranquilizer caught one in the chest, but the other 2 flanked her with supernatural speed. Claws raked across her vest, missing her ribs by inches. She rolled, came up firing, but her weapon clicked empty. The scarred rogue loomed over her, claws raised for a killing blow. "Give the Alpha King a message from us," he snarled. "Tell him his protection ends tonight." The sound of approaching sirens filled the air, but they were still blocks away. Too far. Too late. Sarah closed her eyes and waited for the end. The killing blow never came. Instead, she heard the rogue's scream cut short, followed by the heavy thud of a body hitting concrete. When she opened her eyes, both remaining rogues lay unconscious on the ground. "Status report, Detective Collins." Sarah spun toward the voice. A man stepped from the shadows, tall and broad-shouldered, moving with the fluid grace of a predator. She couldn't make out his features in the darkness, but something about his presence made the air itself seem to thrum with power. "Who?" she started to ask, but he was already gone, melted back into the shadows like he'd never been there at all. Her radio crackled. "Collins, backup is on scene. What's your status?" Sarah stared at the unconscious rogues, her mind racing. The mysterious saviour, the Alpha King, the director's messages that always seemed to know exactly when she'd need help. "Scene is secure," she managed. "Suspects down, no civilian casualties." But as the backup team secured the rogues and processed the scene, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something crucial. Something that would change everything once she understood it. The adrenaline crash hit her on the drive back to headquarters. Her hands shook as she gripped the steering wheel, exhaustion and confusion warring in her chest. Martinez had been right. She looked like hell, felt worse, and for the first time in 2 years, she wasn't sure she could keep doing this. The college student who'd died, the families who'd almost been slaughtered tonight, her partner who'd taken claws to the chest last month during a similar operation. Every case felt like walking a tightrope over an abyss, and tonight she'd nearly fallen. Sarah parked in the empty garage beneath headquarters and sat in the silence. Her badge felt like it weighed 100 pounds. Maybe it was time to admit she wasn't cut out for this. Maybe it was time to find a job that didn't require her to risk everything every night, just to save people who'd never know her name. The elevator ride to the main floor felt endless. The building was nearly empty at 3 a.m, just a skeleton crew and the night shift dispatchers. Sarah's footsteps echoed in the empty hallways as she made her way toward the administrative offices. She was done, finished, ready to turn in her badge and walk away before she got someone else killed. The director's assistant wasn't at her desk, but Sarah didn't care. She pulled her badge from her jacket and set it down on the polished wood with a sharp click. 2 years of her life. 2 years of following mysterious messages and chasing supernatural killers and pretending she was strong enough for this job. It was time to stop pretending. Sarah stood in the empty hallway, staring at her badge on the assistant's desk. The metal caught the fluorescent light, reflecting 2 years of her life back at her in fractured pieces. She should feel relieved. Instead, she felt hollow. "Miss Collins." The voice came from behind her, low and warm, with an authority that made something in her chest pull tight. Sarah turned, expecting to see the night supervisor, or maybe Martinez coming to talk her out of quitting. Instead, she found herself looking at the most devastating man she'd ever seen. He stood in the doorway of what she'd always assumed was a storage closet, but now she could see it opened into a spacious office. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to see straight through her. He wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly salary, and when he moved, it was with the fluid grace of someone accustomed to absolute power. Something warm unfurled in her stomach, something impossible and electric that made her breath catch. "I'm sorry," Sarah managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "I was looking for Director Harrison's office. I need to speak with him about my resignation." The man's lips curved in what might have been a smile. "I'm afraid Director Harrison retired 6 months ago." He stepped closer, and that strange warmth in her chest intensified. "I've been handling his duties since then." Sarah blinked. 6 months. She'd been taking orders from this man for 6 months and never knew it. "You're the director." "I am." His voice carried an undertone that made her skin tingle. "And you're Detective Collins, though I believe we need to discuss your resignation." She gestured toward her badge on the assistant's desk. "There's nothing to discuss. I'm done. Finished. I nearly got civilians killed tonight because I thought I could handle a pack of rogues alone." "But you didn't get them killed." He moved closer, and Sarah caught his scent, something wild and clean, like mountain air and cedar. "You saved them, just like you've saved countless others over the past 2 years." "By luck." The words tasted bitter. "By following mysterious messages from someone I'd never met and hoping I wouldn't screw up badly enough to get innocent people hurt." "Those weren't luck, Sarah." Her name on his lips sent heat shooting through her veins. "Those were carefully calculated operations based on your skills and instincts." Something in his tone made her look at him more carefully. The expensive suit, the way he moved like he owned not just this building, but everything in it. The strange familiarity in his voice when he said her name. "How long have you been watching me?" The question came out shakier than she intended. "Longer than you might expect." He reached past her to pick up her badge, his fingers brushing hers for just a moment. The contact sent electricity up her arm that settled somewhere behind her sternum like a second heartbeat. "Tell me about tonight, about what happened at the warehouse." Sarah pulled her hand back, trying to ignore the way her skin burned where he'd touched her. "I followed the intelligence you provided, engaged the suspects when they moved toward a residential area. Backup arrived after the situation was resolved." "You're leaving something out." Her blood went cold. "I don't know what you mean." "The man who helped you." His dark eyes never left her face. "Tell me about him." Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. She hadn't mentioned the mysterious saviour in her report, hadn't planned to mention him at all. "How do you know about that?" "Because I need to know if you're ready for the truth." "What truth?" Instead of answering, he walked around the assistant's desk and opened what looked like a supply cabinet. Sarah heard the soft beep of a keypad, and suddenly the entire wall swung inward, revealing an elevator she'd never known existed. "My office is downstairs," he said, holding out her badge. "We need to talk privately." Every instinct Sarah had developed over 2 years of police work screamed at her to run. This man was dangerous in ways she couldn't quantify. The way he moved, the way he seemed to know things he shouldn't, the way her body reacted to his presence like he was some kind of magnet designed specifically for her. But when he looked at her, she saw something that made her stay. Patience, understanding. and underneath that, a loneliness that matched her own. 5 minutes, she said, taking her badge from his outstretched hand. The brief contact sent that same electric shock through her system. Then I'm walking out of here and never coming back. The elevator descended far longer than should have been possible. When the doors opened, Sarah stepped into an office that belonged in a different world entirely. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, though she was certain they'd gone down, not up. Rich leather furniture arranged around a fireplace that cast warm light across Persian rugs, bookshelves lined with volumes that looked ancient and expensive. "This is impossible," Sarah breathed. "We're underground. There shouldn't be windows." "There are a lot of things that shouldn't be possible." He moved to a bar cart in the corner, pouring amber liquid into 2 crystal glasses. "But they are." He held out one of the glasses, and Sarah found herself taking it despite every rational thought telling her to demand answers. The whiskey was smooth and expensive, warming her from the inside. "Who are you?" she asked. "I think you already know." He settled into a chair across from her, his movements predatory and controlled. "The rogues tonight called me something. What was it?" Sarah's hand trembled slightly around her glass. "The Alpha King." "Yes." The simple confirmation hit her like a physical blow. The Alpha King, the most powerful supernatural being in North America, possibly the world. The man who controlled every wolf pack from the Atlantic to the Pacific, who'd negotiated the supernatural peace accords with the human government, who existed more as legend than reality in law enforcement circles. "That's impossible," she whispered. "Is it?" He leaned forward, his dark eyes holding her captive. "Think about the past 2 years, Sarah. Every case that came across your desk, every piece of intelligence that arrived at exactly the right moment, every time backup showed up just when you needed it most." The pieces clicked together with devastating clarity. The warehouse tonight. The rogue pack last month that had hurt her partner. The vampire nest that had nearly killed her 6 months ago, stopped only by the timely arrival of a SWAT team that swore they'd received anonymous intelligence. "You've been protecting me." The words came out hollow. "Manipulating my cases. Guiding them." His voice was gentle but firm. "You have a gift, Sarah. An instinct for this work that's almost supernatural itself. I simply made sure you had the support you needed to succeed. By lying to me." Anger flared hot in her chest, burning away the shock. "By making me think I was good at this job, when really I was just your puppet dancing to invisible strings. You think I guided you through 17 major supernatural cases over 2 years because you lack skill?" He stood, setting down his glass with controlled precision. "You think I personally intervened tonight because you're weak? I think you've been manipulating my entire career for reasons I don't understand. I've been protecting my mate." The words hung in the air between them like a live wire. Sarah's glass slipped from numb fingers, shattering against the floor in a spray of crystal and whiskey. "Your what?" "My mate." He moved toward her slowly, like he was approaching a wounded animal. "My fated partner, the other half of my soul, the woman I've been searching for my entire adult life." Sarah shot to her feet, backing away until her shoulders hit the bookshelf. "You're insane." "Am I?" He stopped just close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his skin. "Tell me you haven't felt it, Sarah. Tell me you don't feel the pull every time I'm near you. Tell me your skin doesn't burn where I've touched you." She couldn't, because everything he described was exactly what was happening. The strange warmth in her chest when he spoke, the electricity when their hands brushed, the way her body seemed to recognize him on some level deeper than conscious thought. "This is impossible," she repeated, but the words lacked conviction. "You're a supernatural crimes detective," he said softly. "You've seen impossible things every day for 2 years. You know there are forces in this world that science can't explain." "Forces, yes, but not." She gestured helplessly between them. "Not this, not some mystical connection between strangers." "We're not strangers, Sarah." He reached toward her face, then stopped with his hand inches from her cheek. "I've been watching over you, guiding your path, keeping you safe. I've seen your courage, your dedication, your refusal to give up when other people's lives are at stake. I've watched you grow into the most formidable supernatural crimes investigator in the country. Under false pretenses, under my protection." His hand finally touched her face, and Sarah's breath caught at the jolt of connection that raced through her. "Do you know what would have happened to you without it? A human woman investigating supernatural crimes with that level of dedication? You would have been dead within 6 months." The truth of that statement hit her like cold water. She'd known the risks, had accepted them because someone had to do the job. But she'd never considered how she'd survived when other human investigators hadn't. "I'm leaving," she said, but made no move toward the door. "I'm quitting this job and walking away from all of it." "No." The single word carried absolute authority. "You're not. You can't stop me." He moved faster than humanly possible, caging her against the bookshelf with his arms, not trapping her, but surrounding her with his presence until the scent of cedar and mountain air filled her lungs. "I can stop you," he said, his voice rough with something that might have been desperation. "But I won't. If you truly want to leave, if you can honestly tell me you feel nothing between us, I'll let you go. I'll make sure you're protected wherever you choose to build your new life." Sarah stared up at him, her heart racing. This close, she could see gold flecks in his dark eyes, could feel the controlled power in the muscles of his arms, could sense the careful restraint he was exercising, not to simply claim what he believed belonged to him. "But first," he continued, "you need to understand what you're walking away from. Not just the job, not just the protection, but the chance to be part of something larger than yourself. The chance to stand beside someone who sees your true worth." "I'm nobody," Sarah whispered. "I'm just a cop who got in over her head." "You're everything." The words came out fierce and certain. "You're brave enough to face down supernatural killers with nothing but determination and a tranquilizer gun. You're compassionate enough to risk your life for strangers. You're strong enough to carry the weight of other people's safety on your shoulders without breaking." His thumb brushed across her cheekbone, and Sarah felt something crack open in her chest. Something that had been frozen and guarded for longer than she cared to remember. "You're my mate, Sarah Collins," he said quietly, "and I'm asking you to give me a chance to prove that walking away would be the biggest mistake of your life." Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs as she stared into his dark eyes. The Alpha King, her mysterious director, the man claiming to be her fated mate. Everything she thought she knew about her life, her career, her own abilities crumbled around her like sand. "I need to leave." She ducked under his arm, putting distance between them before that electric pull could scramble her thoughts further. "I need time to think." "Sarah, no!" She spun to face him, anger rising like a tide in her chest. "Don't you dare Sarah me! Not after what you've done!" He stood perfectly still, hands at his sides, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. "What exactly do you think I've done?" "Manipulated me, controlled my entire career, made me think I was good at this job when really I was just your pet project." The words poured out, 2 years of exhaustion and self-doubt given voice. "How long have you been watching me? Since the academy? Since I was a child?" "Since you walked into your first supernatural crime scene 18 months ago." 18 months. Sarah laughed. But there was no humour in it. "So not quite my whole life, just long enough to completely reshape it according to your plans." "I didn't reshape anything." His voice remained calm, patient, which only fueled her anger further. "I simply ensured you had the support necessary to succeed. By lying to me every single day. By protecting you from threats you couldn't see coming." He moved toward his desk, pulling out a thick file folder. "Do you want to know what really happened during your first supernatural case, the vampire nest in the warehouse district?" Sarah's blood went cold. That case had nearly killed her. She'd gone in with backup, But the vampires had been faster and stronger than anyone anticipated. Only the timely arrival of additional units had saved her life. "I was there," he continued, opening the file to reveal surveillance photos, hidden in the shadows, making sure you walked out alive. "Because even then, 18 months ago, I knew what you were to me." "You knew I was your mate after seeing me once?" Disbelief coloured her voice. "I knew you were special after seeing you face down 3 vampires with nothing but a wooden stake and absolute determination." He held out one of the photos. "Look at yourself, Sarah. Really look." Against her better judgment, she took the photo. It showed her in the warehouse, crouched behind a crate with her weapon drawn, blood on her face but her stance unwavering. Even in the grainy surveillance image, she could see the fierce concentration in her own eyes. "I don't see anything special," she said, but the words felt hollow. "I see a woman who refused to run when faced with supernatural predators twice her size. I see someone who put herself between innocent victims and creatures designed to kill. I see courage that can't be taught or faked." Sarah dropped the photo back onto his desk. "Courage doesn't make me your mate." "No." He moved closer, and that infuriating warmth spread through her chest again. "But destiny does." "I don't believe in destiny." "You don't believe in werewolves either until 6 months ago." His lips curved in what might have been a smile. "Your worldview has expanded considerably since then." "That's different. Werewolves are real, provable. I can see the evidence." "And what do you call this?" He gestured between them. "The way your pulse quickens when I'm near, the way your skin burns where I've touched you, the way something in your chest pulls toward me even when your mind is telling you to run." Sarah wrapped her arms around herself, trying to ignore how accurate his description was. "Physical attraction, nothing more." "If that's all this was, you would have acted on it months ago." His voice dropped lower, more intimate. "You would have found excuses to visit my office, to stay late when you knew I was working. Instead, you avoided any personal contact, kept everything strictly professional. Why?" Because something deep inside her had recognized him as dangerous long before she understood why. Because every instinct told her that getting close to the mysterious director would change everything in ways she wasn't ready for. "I was focused on the job," she said instead. "You were protecting yourself from a connection you couldn't understand." He pulled out another file, this one thicker than the first. "Every case I guided you toward, every piece of intelligence I provided, every moment backup arrived exactly when you needed it. None of it was manipulation, Sarah. It was partnership." "Partnership requires honesty. You never even told me your name." "Marcus." The word hung between them like an offering. "My name is Marcus. And you're right, I should have told you sooner." The simple admission deflated some of her anger. Marcus. It suited him somehow, strong and classical and utterly masculine. "Why didn't you?" The question came out softer than she intended. "Because I was afraid you'd run." His honesty hit her like a physical blow. "Because I've spent my entire adult life in a world where people want things from me. Power, protection, influence, money. And you were the first person I'd ever met who valued none of those things." Sarah stared at him, seeing vulnerability beneath his controlled exterior for the first time. "So instead you decided to manipulate my career. I decided to give you the chance to become everything I could see you were capable of being." He opened the thick file, revealing report after report. "Look at these, Sarah. Really look." Despite herself, she moved closer to examine the documents. Case files, all marked with her name. Commendations from superior officers. Success rates that made her breath catch. 17 major supernatural cases solved, Marcus continued. 43 arrests. Over 200 innocent lives saved. A success rate of 91% in situations where the average human investigator manages 60% at best. With your help, she protested. With my intelligence support, but I wasn't there making the arrests, Sarah. I wasn't there talking down the hostile vampires or tracking the rogue werewolves or figuring out which human was collaborating with the supernatural killers. His voice grew fiercer. That was all you. Your instincts, your courage, your brilliant mind putting together pieces that other investigators missed. Sarah stared at the files, her certainty wavering. She remembered every one of those cases. The long hours of investigation, the moments of breakthrough when patterns became clear, the satisfaction of seeing justice served for victims who deserved better. Every lucky break, she said slowly. Every time the evidence fell into place just right. I provided information when I could, but information is useless without someone smart enough to interpret it and brave enough to act on it. Marcus moved to stand beside her, his presence warm and solid. What do you think would have happened if I'd given that same intelligence to Detective Martinez, or Sergeant Peters, or any of the other investigators in the department? Sarah thought about her colleagues, good people, dedicated officers, but none of them had the instincts for supernatural cases that seemed to come naturally to her. They would have gotten themselves killed, she admitted quietly. Yes, they would have. His hand hovered near her shoulder, but didn't quite touch. You're not just any human investigator, Sarah. You're extraordinary, and that has nothing to do with my influence and everything to do with who you are. But my partner got hurt last month because of a case you guided me to. Your partner got hurt because a pack of rogues discovered you were important to me. Marcus's voice went hard and dangerous. They targeted your team specifically to draw me out, to prove they could reach the people I care about. What? Sarah spun to face him. You're telling me Martinez was attacked because of me? Because of your connection to me, yes, but not because of anything you did wrong. His dark eyes held hers steadily. Because there are forces in the supernatural world that would use any weapon against me, including the woman I love. The casual way he said the word love made her breath catch, like it was a simple fact, unshakable as gravity. You don't love me, she whispered. You don't even know me. I know you take your coffee black because you're too focused on work to bother with cream or sugar. I know you work late every night because you can't stand the thought of missing something that might save a life. I know you keep a picture of your sister in your desk drawer and call your mother every Sunday even though she doesn't understand your job. Marcus stepped closer, his voice growing softer. I know you have nightmares about the cases you couldn't solve in time, and I know you blame yourself for things that were never in your control. Each detail hit her like a small shock, not because they were wrong, but because they were exactly right, because somehow, without ever having a personal conversation, he'd seen straight through to the core of who she was. That's surveillance, not love, she managed. That's caring enough to notice everything about someone because they matter more than anything else in your world. He reached toward her face again, and this time she didn't pull away. I fell in love with your dedication before I ever spoke to you, with your courage, your integrity, your refusal to give up even when the odds were impossible. His thumb traced along her cheekbone, and Sarah felt that familiar electricity race through her system, but underneath it was something deeper, warmer, like coming home after years of wandering. This is impossible, she said, but the words lacked conviction. So was surviving 17 supernatural cases without superhuman abilities. So was earning the respect of every supernatural community leader in the city despite being human. So was becoming the most effective investigator the department has ever had in 2 short years. His other hand came up to frame her face. You specialize in impossible, Sarah. Don't stop now. I don't know how to do this. The admission escaped before she could stop it. I don't know how to be anyone's mate or partner or whatever this is supposed to be. You don't have to know. We'll figure it out together. His voice was patient, understanding, and absolutely certain. All I'm asking is that you don't run. Don't throw away what we could have, because it's unfamiliar. Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of his hands against her skin. Everything logical told her to walk away, to find a normal life with normal problems and normal relationships. But everything inside her, every instinct that had kept her alive through dozens of dangerous cases, told her that walking away from Marcus would be the biggest mistake of her life. "What happens if I stay?" she asked quietly. "We take it one day at a time. You keep doing the job you love, but as my partner instead of my secret responsibility. We explore this connection between us and see where it leads." His thumbs brushed across her cheekbones. "And I spend every day trying to prove that I deserve the gift of being trusted by the strongest woman I've ever known." Sarah opened her eyes to find him watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch, not demanding or commanding, despite his obvious power, just waiting, with the patience of someone willing to give her all the time she needed to make her choice. "I'm terrified," she whispered. "Good." His lips curved in the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. "So am I." The alarm started screaming before Sarah could respond to Marcus's confession of fear. Red lights flashed throughout the underground office as an automated voice echoed from hidden speakers. "Security breach, level 1. All personnel to secure positions. This is not a drill." Marcus was moving before the announcement finished, his entire demeanour shifting from vulnerable to predatory in the space of a heartbeat. "Stay behind me," he commanded, his voice carrying an authority that made her body respond before her mind could object. "What's happening?" Sarah's training kicked in as she automatically checked for her weapon, then remembered she'd left everything upstairs with her resignation. "They found us." Marcus pulled open a drawer in his desk, revealing an arsenal that belonged in a military compound. He tossed her a tactical vest and a weapon she didn't recognize. "The same rogues from tonight. They've come to finish what they started." Sarah caught the vest, her hands steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. "How many?" 12, maybe more." Marcus strapped on his own vest with practiced efficiency. "They're moving through the building systematically, floor by floor. The night shift are already evacuated through the emergency protocols, everyone except us." His dark eyes met hers. "They're here for you, Sarah, for us. This is what it means to be connected to me." The weight of that statement hit her as she secured the tactical vest. This was her life now if she stayed. Not just dangerous cases and difficult investigations, but being a target simply for existing in Marcus's world. Another alarm joined the first, this one deeper, more urgent. The lights shifted from red to amber, casting everything in an otherworldly glow. "They've breached the administrative level," Marcus said grimly. "We have maybe 3 minutes before they reach the lower floors." "Where do we go?" Sarah checked the weapon he'd given her. Some kind of modified tranquilizer gun, but heavier than standard issue, with settings she didn't recognize. "There's a safe house 6 blocks away, but we have to reach the parking garage first." Marcus moved toward a section of bookshelf that looked identical to all the others. The building has defensive measures, but not enough to stop a coordinated assault. He pressed something hidden among the book spines, and the entire section swung inward to reveal a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. "How many safe houses do you have?" Sarah asked as they started down the steps, their footsteps echoing in the confined space. "Enough." His response was clipped, focused. "But they'll know about most of them. The rogues have been planning this for months." The staircase ended at a reinforced door that Marcus opened with a keypad and palm scanner. Beyond it lay a parking garage that definitely hadn't been there when she'd parked upstairs. 3 vehicles waited in the shadows, all of them armoured and ready. "This is impossible," Sarah breathed. "The building's infrastructure doesn't—" "Supernatural architecture." Marcus guided her toward a black SUV that looked like it could survive a missile strike. "Same principles that let my office have windows despite being underground." "How much of my reality is going to get rewritten if I stay with you?" "All of it." His honesty was stark and immediate. "Everything you thought you knew about the world, about what's possible, about your place in it, it all changes." Before Sarah could respond, the garage door exploded inward. 7 wolves, all in their animal forms, poured through the opening with supernatural speed. Not the mangy rogues from the warehouse, but huge, well-fed predators with intelligence gleaming in their eyes, pack hunters working in perfect coordination. Marcus didn't hesitate. He shifted between one heartbeat and the next, his human form dissolving into something magnificent and terrifying. The wolf that emerged was massive, easily twice the size of the attackers, with midnight black fur and eyes like molten gold. Sarah had seen supernatural transformations before, but never like this. Never someone she cared about. Never with this sense of rightness, like she was finally seeing Marcus's true self instead of the human mask he wore for her comfort. The lead rogue lunged for her throat. Marcus intercepted it mid-leap, his powerful jaws closing around the attacker's neck with a wet crunch that echoed through the garage. He threw the body aside and placed himself between Sarah and the remaining 6 wolves, his massive form radiating lethal grace. Sarah raised her weapon and fired, the modified tranquilizer catching one of the rogue's centre mass. The wolf stumbled but didn't go down, whatever modifications Marcus had made to the drug apparently not strong enough for supernatural metabolisms. "Behind the car," Marcus's voice came from the wolf's throat, deeper and rougher, but unmistakably his. "Let me handle this." "Like hell." Sarah rolled behind the SUV as claws scraped against concrete where she'd been standing. "I don't run from fights." "These aren't normal rogues, Sarah. They're enhanced, stronger, faster, and specifically trained to kill humans." 2 more wolves flanked them from opposite sides, moving with military precision. Sarah fired again, this time aiming for the legs to slow them down rather than trying for an immediate takedown. Her shot connected, sending one wolf tumbling, but the other was already airborne. Marcus caught it before it could reach her, his claws raking across its ribs as they rolled in a savage tangle of fangs and fury. Blood splattered across the garage floor, and Sarah couldn't tell if it was his or theirs. "Marcus!" She spotted movement in her peripheral vision. 3 more rogues entering through a service entrance she hadn't noticed. "Behind you!" He spun without releasing his current opponent, somehow tracking all the threats simultaneously. But even with his supernatural abilities, the numbers were overwhelming. One of the newcomers circled wide, clearly planning to flank them while Marcus was distracted. Sarah made a choice that would have terrified her an hour ago, but now felt as natural as breathing. She sprinted from behind the car, putting herself directly in the flanking rogue's path. "Sarah, no!" Marcus's roar echoed through the garage. The wolf hit her like a freight train, claws extended and jaws gaping. But Sarah had spent 2 years learning to fight supernatural predators, and her training didn't abandon her now. She rolled with the impact, using the creature's momentum against it, and came up with her weapon pressed against its ribs. She fired 3 times in rapid succession before the rogue could recover. This time, the modified tranquilizer did its job. The wolf collapsed mid-snarl, its enhanced metabolism finally overwhelmed by the chemical cocktail Marcus had designed. But her position left her exposed to the remaining attackers. 2 wolves moved toward her with coordinated precision, their eyes gleaming with intelligence that promised a slow, painful death. Marcus appeared between them like a black thunderbolt, moving faster than should have been possible, even for a supernatural predator. His claws found the throat of the first rogue, while his jaws closed around the spine of the second. Both dropped without a sound. The garage fell silent except for their heavy breathing. "Status," Marcus said, his form already shifting back to human. Blood streaked his face and hands, but he moved without favouring any injuries. "Operational." Sarah's voice was steadier than she felt. Her heart was racing, adrenaline making her hands shake slightly, but she was whole and functional. "How many more are there?" "Unknown, but they'll regroup and come again." Marcus moved to check the fallen rogues, his movements efficient and clinical. "We need to reach the safe house before reinforcements arrive." "Wait!" Sarah grabbed his arm as he turned toward the SUV. "You're injured." "It's nothing." But when she looked closer, she could see claw marks across his ribs where the tactical vest hadn't covered, deep enough to be serious, though he was hiding the pain with supernatural control. "Let me see." The request came out more like a command, and something in her tone made him still. "Sarah, we don't have time." "We don't have time for you to bleed out in the driver's seat either." She moved closer, her hands finding the tears in his shirt. "Let me help." For a moment Marcus looked like he might argue. Then something in her expression made him relent, lifting his arms so she could examine the wounds properly. The claw marks were deep but clean, already beginning to heal with supernatural speed. Sarah had basic field medical training, but this was beyond anything she'd dealt with before. "First aid kit?" she asked. "Glove compartment, but Sarah, my healing is faster with proper care." She was already moving toward the vehicle, muscle memory taking over. "And I'm not watching you suffer when I can do something about it." As she cleaned and bandaged the wounds with steady hands, Sarah felt something shift between them. Not the electric pull of the mate bond, but something deeper. Partnership, trust, the absolute certainty that they could face anything together. "Why did you put yourself in danger for me?" Marcus asked quietly, his voice rough with something that might have been awe. "Because that's what partners do." Sarah met his eyes as she secured the last bandage. "They protect each other." "Even when one of them is a supernatural predator who dragged you into a world you never asked for?" "Especially then." She smiled, surprised to find she meant it completely. "Besides, I think I've been in this world longer than I realized. I just didn't know it had a name." Marcus stared at her for a long moment, his dark eyes unreadable. Then he cupped her face in his hands and kissed her. Not gently, not tentatively, but with the desperate intensity of someone who'd almost lost everything that mattered. Sarah kissed him back with equal fervour, pouring 2 years of loneliness and confusion and unnamed longing into the connection between them. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. "We should go," Marcus said against her forehead. "Yes," Sarah agreed, but neither of them moved. "The safe house has better security and a real first aid kit." "Good." "And privacy." "Even better." Another alarm sounded in the distance, reminding them that their enemies were still out there, still hunting. "Ready?" Marcus asked, his hand finding hers. Sarah squeezed his fingers, feeling the calluses from weapons and the strength that had just saved her life. "Ready?" They ran for the SUV together, partners in truth as well as name, bound by choice as much as destiny. Whatever came next, they would face it side by side. The safe house was nothing like Sarah had expected. Instead of the sterile military-style bunker she'd imagined, Marcus led her into a warm townhouse that felt more like a home than a hideout. Soft lighting, comfortable furniture, and the scent of cedar that she was beginning to associate with safety. With him. "Kitchen's through there," Marcus said, shrugging out of his torn tactical vest. "Bathroom upstairs if you want to clean up. I'll check the perimeter and make sure we weren't followed." Sarah nodded, suddenly aware of the blood on her clothes and the adrenaline crash making her hands shake. "How long do we stay here?" "Until I can neutralize the remaining threat." His voice was matter of fact, like planning to eliminate a pack of enhanced supernatural assassins was just another item on his to-do list. "Could be a few hours, could be a few days." "And then what?" Marcus paused in the doorway, his dark eyes finding hers. "Then we decide what comes next. Together." The weight of that word, together, settled over her as he disappeared to secure the building. Sarah stood in the living room, surrounded by evidence of a life she'd never imagined. Books on supernatural lore mixed with crime novels on the shelves, a chess set with pieces carved from black and white stone, photographs of Marcus with people she didn't recognize, all of them radiating the same controlled power that marked them as supernatural. This could be her life, not just the danger and the fighting, but the quiet moments in between, the domestic peace of someone waiting for her to come home. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like coming up for air after drowning. "Perimeter's secure," Marcus announced when he returned 20 minutes later. "No sign of pursuit. The rogues are regrouping, but it'll take them time to track us here." Sarah had found her way to the kitchen and was examining the contents of his refrigerator with the same attention to detail she brought to crime scenes. "You actually cook?" Hard to believe. There was humour in his voice as he joined her, moving to pull ingredients from cabinets with practised ease. "I just assumed the Alpha King had people for that." "I have people for a lot of things." Marcus set a pan on the stove, his movements confident and domestic, in a way that made her chest tight. "But cooking relaxes me, gives me something to do with my hands that doesn't involve violence or politics." Sarah watched him dice vegetables with the same precision he'd used to fight the rogues. "What else don't I know about you?" "Everything." His smile was rueful. "I've spent 2 years learning who you are, but you're starting from nothing." "Then tell me." Sarah boosted herself up to sit on the counter, her legs swinging like a child's. The casual position felt natural in a way that surprised her. "What does the Alpha King do when he's not being mysterious and protective?" Marcus glanced up from his cutting board, and something warm flickered in his dark eyes at seeing her so relaxed in his space. "I read a lot. History, philosophy, supernatural law. I play chess, though finding worthy opponents is challenging when most people are afraid to beat you." "I play chess. Do you?" The interest in his voice was genuine. "How good are you?" "Good enough to beat Martinez 3 games out of 5, Sarah grinned. "Though he claims I cheat by reading his tells." "Ah, a detective's advantage." Marcus added the vegetables to the pan, the sizzle filling the comfortable silence. "What else do you want to know?" "Everything." The word escaped before she could stop it. "Your childhood, how you became Alpha King, what you do for fun, whether you've ever been in love before." The last question hung between them, more vulnerable than she'd intended. Marcus stilled, his attention focused on the pan for a long moment. "Never," he said quietly. "I've had relationships, but never love. Never someone who saw me as anything other than what I could provide them. Power, status, protection, access to supernatural society." He glanced at her. "You're the first person who's ever looked at me and seen just a man." Sarah's heart clenched. "You're not just a man, though. You're the Alpha King. With you, I want to be." His honesty hit her like a physical blow. "I want to be someone you choose because of who I am, not what I am." "Marcus?" She slipped down from the counter, moving to stand beside him at the stove. "I need you to understand something. What happened tonight, fighting beside you, protecting each other, that wasn't about duty or supernatural bonds or destiny." He turned to face her fully, his dark eyes searching her face. "That was about choice," Sarah continued. "My choice. I chose to stay and fight. I chose to protect you. I chose to trust you with my life. And now?" Sarah reached for his hands, her fingers intertwining with his. "Now I'm choosing to stay. Not because of some mystical mate bond, but because you're the first person who's ever made me feel like I'm exactly where I belong." Something cracked open in Marcus's expression, vulnerability bleeding through the careful control he maintained. "You don't know what you're signing up for." "Then show me." Sarah stepped closer until she could feel the heat radiating from his skin. "No more secrets, no more protection. Show me what my life looks like if I choose you." Marcus's hands came up to frame her face, his thumbs brushing across her cheekbones. "Dangerous, complicated, public in ways you've never experienced." "I can handle dangerous and complicated. I've been doing it for 2 years. Not like this. Being my mate makes you a target for every enemy I've ever made. It makes you visible to supernatural communities across the continent. It means learning to navigate politics you've never dreamed of." "And?" Sarah raised an eyebrow. "What else?" "It means being my partner in everything, not just romantically, but professionally. The supernatural community needs a bridge to human law enforcement, someone who understands both worlds. His voice grew softer. I need a deputy I trust completely, someone who sees the bigger picture and isn't afraid to tell me when I'm wrong. You want me to be your partner, officially? I want you to be my equal. The words came out fierce and certain. In every way that matters. Sarah stared at him, understanding flooding through her. Not just a romantic relationship, but a true partnership. A chance to do work that mattered on a scale she'd never imagined possible. What about my team, Martinez and the others? They'll be offered positions in the expanded Supernatural Crimes Unit. Better resources, better training, supernatural liaisons to help them understand what they're dealing with. Marcus smiled. Martinez has potential. With the right guidance, he could be one of the best. You've thought of everything. I've had 2 years to plan for this conversation. His thumbs traced along her jawline. 2 years to imagine what I'd say if you ever gave me the chance to explain what we could be together. Sarah felt the last of her resistance crumble, not because she was overwhelmed or manipulated, but because everything he offered was exactly what she'd been searching for without knowing it. Purpose, partnership, belonging. I'm terrified, she admitted. Good. Marcus's smile was soft and understanding. So am I, but we'll figure it out together. Promise? I promise. He leaned down until his forehead rested against hers. Whatever comes next, we face it side by side. Sarah closed her eyes, breathing in his scent and the certainty in his voice. When she opened them again, her decision was clear. Okay, she said simply. Okay? I'm in, all the way. Sarah smiled, feeling lighter than she had in years. But I have conditions. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Name them. First, no more secrets. If we're partners in everything. I need to know what I'm walking into. Agreed. Second, I keep my badge. Whatever title you want to give me, I'm still a cop first. Already arranged. You'll be Deputy Director of Supernatural Crimes, with full law enforcement authority. And third... Sarah reached up to cup his face, her fingers tracing the strong line of his jaw. We take this slow, the romantic part, I mean. I need time to adjust to everything else without feeling like I'm being swept away. How slow? His voice was rough with barely controlled desire. Slow enough that when I kiss you again, it's because I can't imagine my life without you, not because of adrenaline or supernatural bonds or anything other than the fact that I'm completely, irrevocably in love with you. Marcus went very still. And if that never happens? Sarah smiled, seeing the fear he was trying to hide. It will, because I'm already halfway there. Before he could respond, she stood on her toes and kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promise, a beginning rather than a claiming. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. The food's burning, Sarah said against his lips. I don't care. I do. I'm starving, and if we're going to plan the rest of our lives, I need sustenance. Marcus laughed, the sound rich and warm and completely unguarded. Yes, ma'am, Deputy Director. I like the sound of that, Sarah said, moving to help him salvage dinner, though I think I'm going to like the sound of your name better. Marcus? Marcus. She tested the word, rolling it around on her tongue. My partner, my equal, mine. The possessive note in her voice made his eyes darken with something that had nothing to do with his supernatural nature and everything to do with the man underneath. Yours, he agreed quietly, for as long as you'll have me. Sarah smiled, feeling the truth of it settle into her bones like coming home. Forever, then. Forever. 3 months later, Sarah stood in the briefing room of the newly expanded Supernatural Crimes Division, watching her team prepare for their latest case. The morning sunlight streamed through windows that shouldn't have existed in the basement level, but she'd stopped questioning the impossible architecture of her new world. Vampire Nest, Downtown Warehouse District, Detective Martinez announced, spreading crime scene photos across the conference table. 3 human victims, all drained completely. Security footage shows at least 6 suspects. Enhanced vampires or traditional? Sarah asked, her deputy director badge catching the light as she leaned forward to examine the evidence. Traditional, according to the scent markers, Officer Chen replied. She was one of the new supernatural liaisons, a werewolf who joined their team to help bridge the gap between human and supernatural law enforcement. But organised, military precision. Sarah nodded, her mind already working through the tactical implications. After 3 months of leading joint operations, she'd learned to think in terms of both human police procedure and supernatural politics. Backup teams, she asked. Staged and ready, Martinez confirmed. Full supernatural task force plus emergency medical with supernatural trained paramedics. The planning was seamless now, a far cry from the chaotic, understaffed operations she'd run as a regular detective. Resources, training, support, everything she'd needed but never had access to before Marcus had revealed the truth about their partnership. Deputy Director, Sergeant Peters spoke up from the back of the room. We've got confirmation that this isn't random violence. Intelligence suggests they're targeting specific individuals with connections to the Alpha King's administration. Sarah felt the familiar flutter of awareness that meant Marcus was approaching before she heard his footsteps in the hallway. The mate bond had strengthened over the months, becoming less overwhelming and more like a comfortable constant, a background warmth that told her when he was near. Speaking of which, she said with a small smile, let's get input from our consultant. Marcus entered the briefing room with the controlled grace she'd come to love, wearing his usual perfectly tailored suit, but carrying himself with the easy authority of someone completely comfortable in his own skin. The team straightened unconsciously, not in fear, but in respect for someone who'd proven himself to be a fair and effective leader. Status report, he asked, moving to stand beside Sarah at the head of the table. Not in front of her, not overshadowing her authority, but clearly marking them as partners in all things. Organised vampire cell targeting your associates, Sarah summarised efficiently. We're preparing coordinated response with full supernatural support. Marcus nodded, his attention focused on the evidence spread before them. I recognise the kill patterns. This is the remnant of the rogue pack from 3 months ago, but they've recruited vampire allies. Personal vendetta? Martinez asked. Professional? Marcus's voice carried the weight of experience. They're trying to destabilise the supernatural human cooperation agreements by creating high-profile incidents that make us look ineffective. Sarah caught his eye, and something passed between them. Understanding, strategy, complete trust in each other's judgment. Recommendations? Joint operation, but with a twist. We let them think they've succeeded in drawing me out, then close the trap when they're focused on the wrong target. Using yourself as bait, Sarah said flatly. Using us as bait, Marcus corrected with a slight smile. They want the Alpha King and his human mate. We give them exactly what they're expecting. 3 months ago, the thought of deliberately putting herself in supernatural crosshairs would have terrified Sarah. Now it felt like just another day at the office. I like it, she decided. Martinez, coordinate with the supernatural liaisons on positioning. Chen, I want scent maps of the entire district. Peters, make sure our snipers have the new supernatural enhanced ammunition. The team dispersed with the efficiency of a well-oiled machine, leaving Sarah and Marcus alone in the briefing room. How are you feeling about this one? Marcus asked quietly, moving closer now that they had privacy. Confident. Sarah gathered the crime scene photos, her movements quick and sure. We've got good intelligence, experienced backup, and a plan that plays to our strengths. That's not what I meant. Sarah looked up to find Marcus watching her with the intense focus that meant he was reading every micro-expression, every subtle cue that indicated her emotional state. I'm fine, she said. Really, this is what we do now. This is what we do now, Marcus agreed. But 3 months ago, you were ready to quit police work entirely because you thought you weren't good enough for it. The reminder made Sarah pause. 3 months ago, she'd been convinced that her success was purely the result of Marcus's behind-the-scenes manipulation, that she was nothing special, just a regular cop in over her head. Now she stood in command of the most effective supernatural crimes unit in the country, respected by both human and supernatural law enforcement, completely confident in her abilities and her place in this strange new world. "What changed?" Marcus asked, though his slight smile suggested he already knew the answer. "I did." Sarah moved closer, her hands finding the lapels of his suit jacket. "I learned to see myself the way you see me." "And how's that?" "Extraordinary." The word came out without hesitation or self-consciousness. "Capable. Strong enough to handle anything that gets thrown at me." Marcus's hands came up to cover hers, his thumbs brushing across her knuckles. "Exactly. Plus, I have an unfair advantage now." "Which is?" Sarah smiled, going up on her toes to brush a quick kiss across his lips. "I have a partner who watches my back, believes in my judgment, and trusts me to make life-or-death decisions without second-guessing me." "Mutual," Marcus said against her mouth. "Good thing, because this plan of yours is completely insane, and I'm absolutely on board with it." Marcus laughed, the sound warm and unguarded. "I love your version of romantic support. I love that you never ask me to be anyone other than exactly who I am. Even when who you are is someone who runs toward danger instead of away from it. Especially then." Sarah stepped back, straightening his tie with the unconscious intimacy of someone completely comfortable with domestic touches. "Ready to go catch some vampires?" "Ready." The operation went flawlessly. 6 hours later, Sarah sat in the aftermath briefing, watching her team process evidence and coordinate with supernatural authorities to ensure proper justice for the perpetrators. No casualties on their side, all suspects in custody, and another successful collaboration between human and supernatural law enforcement. "Hell of a thing," Martinez said, settling into the chair beside her. "Year ago, I thought vampires were just stories. Now I'm filing arrest reports on them." "How are you adjusting?" Sarah asked. Martinez had been her biggest concern when the expanded unit was formed. A good cop, but traditional in his thinking. "Better than expected." He grinned. "Turns out supernatural criminals are still criminals. Same motivations, same patterns, just with better teeth." "And Officer Chen?" "Best partner I've ever had. Turns out having someone who can track by scent makes investigations a lot easier." Martinez's expression grew more serious. "I owe you an apology, Sarah." "For what?" "For thinking you were just getting lucky all those times, for not seeing how good you actually were at this job." He shook his head. "You were carrying the whole department's supernatural caseload, and I thought it was because you were reckless." "I was reckless." "You were fearless. There's a difference." Martinez stood, gathering his files. "For what it's worth, I think you found exactly where you belong." Sarah watched him leave, then turned her attention to the window overlooking the main office. Marcus was visible through the glass, discussing something with the supernatural community liaisons who'd come to coordinate the aftermath. Even in a room full of powerful supernatural beings, he commanded attention without demanding it. Her partner, her equal, the man who'd seen her potential before she'd seen it herself. "Deputy Director?" Officer Chen appeared in the doorway. "Final reports are ready for your signature." "Thank you." Sarah signed the documents with the confident strokes of someone completely comfortable with her authority. "Make sure copies go to both human and supernatural justice departments." "Already done. Also, the Alpha King asked me to let you know he's finished with the community liaisons whenever you're ready to head home." Home. The word still sent a warm flutter through Sarah's chest. Not just her apartment anymore, but the life she'd built with Marcus. The townhouse they'd officially moved into together 2 weeks ago, filled with evidence of their shared existence. Her chess set on his antique table, his books mixed with hers on the shelves, photographs of their life together among the formal portraits of supernatural dignitaries. "Tell him I'll be right there," Sarah said. She gathered her things with the efficient movements of someone who'd found her rhythm, her place, her purpose. The badge on her chest caught the light as she stood, not the same badge she tried to resign with 3 months ago, but the symbol of everything she'd become since then. Deputy Director of Supernatural Crimes, Marcus's partner in every sense of the word. The bridge between two worlds she'd learned to navigate with equal skill, the woman who'd finally learned to see her own worth. Marcus was waiting by the elevator when she emerged from the briefing room, his dark eyes warming when they found her. "Ready to go home?" he asked. "More than ready." Sarah took his offered hand, their fingers interlacing with the ease of long practice. "Though I should warn you, I'm planning to destroy you at chess tonight." "Confident? I've been studying your tells." "Have you now?" Marcus's smile was pure challenge. "And what exactly do you think you've learned?" "That you're about to kiss me in this elevator." "Am I?" "Yes, because you always do that little thing with your eyes when you're thinking about it, and you've been doing it for the past 30 seconds. Marcus laughed, pulling her closer as the elevator doors closed. "You know me too well." "Not possible," Sarah said just before his lips met hers. "I plan to spend the rest of my life learning new things about you." "Forever's a long time," Marcus murmured against her mouth. "Not nearly long enough." The elevator carried them up toward the surface, toward home, toward whatever came next in the life they'd built together. Sarah closed her eyes and leaned into Marcus's warmth, completely content with her choice to stay, to fight beside him, to love him, to be exactly who she was meant to be, never leaving again. Where are you listening from? I'd love to meet you in the comments and hear your thoughts about Sarah and Marcus's story. If you enjoyed this tale of finding love and purpose in unexpected places, please subscribe. It's free and helps more people discover these stories. Thank you for spending this time with me, and I'll see you in the next one.